Hi folks, so today's video is going to be on the Lambeth Poisoner. So Thomas Neil Cream was born on the 27th of May 1850. He was a Scottish-Canadian medical doctor and serial killer who poisoned his victims with cyanide. Cream murdered up to 10 people in 3 different countries, targeting mostly lower-class women, prostitutes and pregnant women seeking abortions. He was convicted and sentenced to death, and he was hung on the 15th of November 1892. Cream was born in Glasgow in 1850. Cream's family moved to Canada, then still a dominion of the British Empire, until 1854. He was raised outside Quebec City and he went to university in Montreal, graduating with MDCM degree in 1876. In 1876, while living in Waterloo, Quebec, Cream met and courted a woman named Flora Brooks. When Brooks became pregnant a few months later, after Cream had promised to marry her, he attempted to perform an abortion but failed. With Brooks left severely ill, Cream attempted to escape to Montreal but was caught by Brooks's father, who forced him to return and marry her. A day after the wedding, Cream left for England and continued his medical education. The Brooks family never saw or heard from him again. Brooks herself died in 1877. Cream returned to North America in 1878 and established a medical practice in London, Ontario. He was later charged under Ontario's Medical Act with practicing without a licence and later pled guilty. However, this did not deter patients from visiting his office. In 1879, Catherine Hutcherson Gardner was found dead in the privy behind Cream's office at 204 Dundas Street. She was pregnant and had been murdered with a handkerchief soaked in chloroform. Cream had refused to help her with an abortion, instead urging her to accuse a local businessman of being the father. Cream claimed Gardner had threatened to poison herself after he had not agreed to perform the abortion, and that she had written him a letter in which she named the businessman as the father. However, Gardner's family and roommate denied that she had written it, and the signature and handwriting on the letter did not match her own, and it was dismissed as a forgery. Despite rumours and overwhelming evidence, Cream was never charged for this crime. After this, Cream would later establish a medical practice in Chicago, not far from the red light district, offering illegal abortions to prostitutes. He was investigated in August 1880 after the death of Mary Ann Faulkner, a woman on whom he had allegedly operated. He escaped prosecution due to a lack of evidence. In December 1880, another patient, Mary Stack, died after treatment by Cream. Cream would actually attempt to blackmail the pharmacist who had filled in her prescription. In April 1881, a woman named Alice Montgomery died of cyanide poisoning following an abortion in a rooming house barely a block from Cream's office. The case was ruled as a murder but was never solved. The location and time period and method make Cream the likely suspect. On the 14th of July 1881, Daniel Strott died of cyanide poisoning at his home in Boone County, Illinois. After Cream supplied him with an alleged remedy for epilepsy, the death was ruled as natural causes, but Cream wrote to the coroner blaming the pharmacist for the death. After this, he attempted to blackmail him. This time, Cream was arrested along with a Miss Julia A. Abbey Strott, who allegedly became Cream's mistress and procured the poison from Cream to do away with her husband. She would turn witness for the prosecution and go against Cream. She blamed everything on Cream, which left him to face the murder conviction on his own. He was sentenced to life imprisonment in 1881. So Cream was released in July 1891 by Governor Joseph W. Fitzford, after he had commuted his sentence after Cream's brother pleaded for leniency and allegedly bribed the authorities. Using money he had inherited from his father, who had died in 1887, Cream sailed for England, arriving in Liverpool on the 1st of October 1891, 3 years after the Jack the Ripper killings had been committed. He went to London and took up lodgings in 103 Lambeth Palace Road. At the time, Lambeth was riddled with poverty, petty crime and prostitution. On the 13th of October 1891, Ellen Donworth, a 19-year-old prostitute, received 2 letters from Cream and agreed to meet him. He offered her a drink from a bottle. She became severely ill that night and died from what would later be found to be cyanide poisoning. During her inquest, Cream wrote to the coroner under a different name, offering to name the murderer for a return of a 300,000 reward. He also wrote to W.H. Smith owner W.F.D. Smith, accusing him of the murder and demanding money for his silence. On the 20th of October, Cream met with a 27-year-old prostitute named Matilda Clover and offered her pills, instructing her to take 4 before bed. She began experiencing vomit, pain and spasms later that night and died 2 hours later. Her death was assumed to be heart failure due to alcohol withdrawal. Cream, under the name L. Malone, wrote a letter to the prominent physician William Broadbent, claiming to have evidence of his involvement in the Clover's death, demanding $25,000 for his silence. Broadbent contacted Scotland Yard and they set a trap for the blackmailer. When he would come to collect the money, however, no one was caught. On the 2nd of April 1892, after a vacation in Canada, Cream returned to London where he met Louise Harvey, a prostitute. He offered 2 pills to her, insisting she swallow them right away. Harvey, suspicious of him, pretended to swallow the pills and then later threw them up over the bridge into the River Thames. On the 11th of April, Cream met with another 2 prostitutes, Alice Marsh, 21, and Emma Silville, 18, and spent the night with them in their flat. Before leaving, he offered them 3 pills each and a can of tinned salmon. Both women died later that night from cyanide poisoning. Through his attempts at blackmailing people, Cream succeeded in drawing closer attention to himself. Not only did the police quickly determine the innocence of those accused, but they noticed something telling about the accusations made by the anonymous letters. He had referred to the murder of Matilda Clover. Clover's death had been registered under natural causes related to her drinking. The police quickly realised that the false accuser who had written the letter was a serial killer, now referred to in the newspapers and as the Lambeth Poisoner. Not long after, Cream met with a policeman from New York City who had been visiting London. The policeman had heard of the Lambeth Poisoner and Cream gave him a brief tour of where the various victims had lived. The American happened to mention to the British police that he found Cream's details and knowledge of the cases very suspicious. The police at Scotland Yard put Cream under surveillance and soon discovered his habit of visiting prostitutes. They conducted an investigation in the United States and Canada and learned about the suspect's history, including the conviction for murder by poisoning in 1881. On the 3rd of June 1892, Cream was arrested for the murder of Matilda Clover. On the 13th of July, he was formally charged with the murders of Clover, Donsworth, Marsh and Silville. The attempted murder of Harvey was also brought up. From the start, he insisted he was only Dr. Thomas Neal and not Thomas Neal Cream, and in the newspapers referred to him as Dr. Neal in the coverage of the proceedings. His trial lasted from the 17th to the 21st of October 1892, and it only took 12 minutes for the jury to find him guilty in all counts, and Justice Harvey Hawkins sentenced him to death. Less than a month later, after his conviction, on the 15th of November, Cream was hanged in Newgate Prison by James Billington. So, the last thing that he apparently said before he died was, "I am Jack," which a lot of people seem to think that means that he was Jack the Ripper. I don't believe that, and a lot of historians don't believe it, but I don't believe it for the simple reason as he was in prison when the Ripper killings happened, when the Whitechapel murders happened. So it couldn't have been him. But what I do believe, personally, my own personal opinion here, is that he probably did that for the limelight. He probably did that because he knew that he was getting caught. Well, he knew he'd been caught, he knew he was in the death penalty, and he knew that it was probably a last hurrah. You know, he was an awful man, to be honest. But yeah, I just found it really interesting to cover, you know, not just him, but the victims as well of the crimes that he committed. And yeah, we should just remember stuff like this. Thanks for watching, guys, and I hope everyone has a great day.